All right, I'm glad to be here. So I've got a bunch of other stuff to throw in at the end if there is time, which I think there will be. But the most important thing is to humiliate the antivirus companies. I'm going to pick on a lot of people today. So I'm Sam Bowne. I teach at City College San Francisco. I teach ethical hacking and malware analysis and stuff like that. So we all use antivirus, and I hear the penetration testers always abusing it and saying it's a piece of garbage. And there are sometimes even exploits that come in through the antivirus and take over your machine. But most of us, including me, have always told people use antivirus anyway because I'm sure it's stopping you from a whole lot of attacks. But the question is exactly what is it stopping? Because it sure isn't perfect. And it seems like if you make an attempt to get past it, it's not as hard as it ought to be to get past. So if you go to the vendors to try to have this all made clear to you, you get this. Antivirus is dead, and then a month later the same company says they're going to remove viruses with 100% efficiency. So that's not helping me very much. So I go to this guy who is the public face of the antivirus industry in my opinion. He's a very clear speaker, so he explains it. Now the question is whether I can broadcast. This is a very influential talk that Mikko Hypponen gave, explaining what antivirus can do and what it can't do. So I'm going to attempt to play this so you can hear it. Yes, I said play.
I've been asked many times about it. How did you do it? Like, why did you get it?
Is it picking it up?
I explain it.
Well, this is bad.
The attackers show you a picture.
Well, I may have to just go with my description of it then, which is too bad.
The attackers try to find a comparison from the real world. Well, here's an attacker. Street robber from somewhere in South America, stopping cars by gunpoint.
Can you hear it?
Stealing the wallets of the passengers. And his cyber equivalent would be a banking Trojan or a ransom Trojan or a bot.
I think they're going to turn this up.
He doesn't really care who he stops. As long as he gets the money. So everybody's.
Anybody know where the sound comes out on this thing?
And credit card stealing. Keyloggers, they don't really care.
Where?
Whose credit card they steal. It could be
underneath. I can't find a hole. Well, we'll just carry on. What's that? Yeah, I can't. All right. Anyway, I'll tell you what I remember him saying because it's very interesting. What he's trying to explain why the antivirus industry could not stop Stuxnet. And what he says is that there are two kinds of malware. There's the malware written by James Bond, who has infinite resources and he has guns and he has a whole state backing him, and that's why they can't stop it because they're antivirus. What they can save you from is just an average thug that just wants to steal your money. And this was my impression of antivirus. I thought antivirus was like a big tall wall and a locked door that only somebody with special skills could get through. And so let's carry on and see what happens here. So if you try to make something really lame that antivirus should know about, you can use Metasploit to make an attack. You use MSF payload, you can just make any attack you want. The simplest one I could think of was a bind TCP that will just start a listening port and shovel a shell out a listening port. So you can use the X command and it will create executable Windows code right there for you that you can just put in and run. And if you do that, antivirus will catch that. Thank God. I mean, what would it be good for if it couldn't even catch that? So here's Avira detecting it, and here's Norton detecting it. But if you take a look at what Norton has detected here, it has detected it as packed generic 347. And if you look up what Norton has detected, it is much less reassuring if you think about it. It has detected that this thing was packed using the Metasploit pen testing software. So apparently it was not able to understand that this thing was making a listening port and offering a shell out. All it noticed was the packer. And that's disturbing. That makes me think that although antivirus did stop it, it did not stop it by being as intelligent as I think it should be. And I send this thing up to VirusTotal. Everybody's antivirus can pick it up. 37 out of 49, that's pretty good. So the question is, how smart do you have to be 007? And yeah, maybe it looks like, can you tell him to turn it down a bit? I think he will. All right, so what do you have to do? And the answer is in this book, Violent Python, been out for a couple of years now. This is an excellent book. People recommended it to me and I used it in my class last semester to give my students homework. You can get them to turn it down a bit more, that would be good. They're working on it. Anyway, so let's try to sneak stuff past antivirus. And this one I'll demonstrate from start to finish. It's not very hard. Shell bind TCP. So first you have to make this Metasploit payload, and then compile it into Python. So here's my instructions. There's the Metasploit payload. You just go into Kali Linux and you make that thing. I'm going to call it, this thing isn't there, not listening to me the way it should. All right, let's call it LayerOne. Foo. All right. So this makes C code, not a Windows executable. This is the all-important difference. And now if you examine what it's made, LayerOne, it has made this thing, which is just taking the binary that it would have put in a Windows executable PE format and putting it in C. So what I do, following the book, is I convert this into Python, which is not all that tough to do. You delete all that stuff, and then you put this stuff on the top. See, where am I? There I am. Good. Shift-Control-V. That'll do it. And then at the bottom, pay close attention, you close the parentheses. And then you put in this stuff. So this is how you become James Bond. The thing is, it's casting that stuff in memory as a block of data and then executing it. That's it. So I save that, and then I copy it to my desktop to try to encourage VMware tools to work. Okay. Now I try to clear up some desktop space here. There's some. Good. And there's the thing I just created. So there it is, my evil malware. Okay, now I have to compile this stuff to make it from Python into a Windows executable. And it takes a couple of steps to set that up. But when you're done, you just have pipwin working on Windows. I happen to be doing it on Server 2008 for no particularly good reason. So this thing gives me a Python compiler I can use. So all I have to do is put that on my desktop. And then here I can do, I'll go back to my slides. That's it, PyInstaller. One file, no console. All right. So that's my Windows command line. Okay, PyInstaller. I got it in my clipboard. Right click, paste, there we are. And now I need to give it the LayerOne foo. Okay. That compiles it. And it's going to put it in a folder called dist on my desktop, which is here. Okay. So this is now my malware. So let's run it right here and you can see what it does. If I run this thing, you can tell what it's done by using a command prompt. This one will do netstat -an pipe more. It is listening on port 4444 on all TCP addresses. Here's my IP address, 192.168.119.191. So if I go to my Kali Linux box, for example, which would be this one, I can just connect to it on that port. There, now I can see the address. All right, so let's just do netcat 192.168.119.191 4444, and now I'm in Windows. So the Windows is under remote control because this malware is piping out a shell, which is obviously not a good thing. All right, so you would expect antivirus to catch that, and it does. And I don't remember, I think I've got one running here to show you. If I go to this Windows 7 here, there, it's just gone to sleep on me. There we go. This Windows 7 has Kaspersky antivirus, and I also put Avast on it. It complains a little bit about putting two on at the same time, but it takes it. And I wanted to be able to demonstrate it more than one at a time in this talk. So, all right, there we are. Let's shrink this. That's Windows 2008. I've had to make it to my Windows 7. All right, Windows 7 with antivirus. All right, pardon me. Got to get my executable out of here. Okay, and then put it in my target. Okay, it goes in It doesn't complain yet, but when you run it, antivirus ought to pop up and do something about it. Yep, there we go. It can't access it, and the reason it can't access it is because the antivirus blocked it, which is what you expect. So Kaspersky can catch that dangerous behavior. But the dangerous behavior is not very nice. It's, again, Win32 generic stuff. It's not really understanding very much about it. So let me go back to my slides and let's talk about what this means. So that was perhaps reassuring. If you make really, really lame malware, it'll get caught. Now, the first thing I did when I made this was I sent it up to VirusTotal, and this will totally fool VirusTotal. The malware I just showed you is not detected at VirusTotal at all. 1 out of 50, and that's a very lame, false positive looking heuristic detection. So I said, this proves the antivirus vendors are a bunch of jerks and they're not doing a good job at all. And so Norton is paying attention on Twitter. And someone was talking about Norton's CEO change. And I said, well, they want to really improve the company. They should try blocking the malware. And Norton Support immediately came up and said, I'm sorry, you're having a problem with the Norton product. What can I do for you? Like instantly. And I said, wow, here I was being rude to you. And here I was being polite to me. I'm impressed. This is a good company. So I said, well, now that you mention it, why don't you block this stuff? And he said, well, I'm not sure. And I said, well, how about this? How about giving me a 30-day trial of your stuff? Because he told me he had a good answer. The answer is, if you really installed it, it would really block that stuff because it would have access to heuristic detection, which VirusTotal does not have. Now I said, okay, let's see. Give me a 30-day trial, and he did. And as you can see, Kaspersky blocks it, and Norton blocks it too, with their powerful heuristic scanning. So that was true. So Norton wins. Python versus Norton round 1. And Kaspersky wins too. Avast doesn't, but at least some of the antivirus can detect it. But when you take a look at what it's really detecting, it's not quite so reassuring. So I put that on Twitter. I said, well, I was complaining about Norton yesterday, saying they're worthless. Now today they seem to work. So this guy, Bobby Tables, came to me, he here, by the way? And I don't think I've met him in the real world, but he said, you can get past that. All you have to do. He said, you know how to do it? I said, I don't know. Tell me how. And so he told me how. All you have to do is delay the onset. And if you delay, because it doesn't run the heuristic scanner all the time, it just runs it for the first few seconds after an app launches. And so all you do is you add this one line to the Python. So let me just show you that one. If you go to your Windows 2008, here's my foo thing. I go back to my command line here. I can use a notepad on LayerOne. Okay, there's my glorious shellcode. Oh, WordPad will work a little better. It's got a problem with the carriage returns coming from Linux. WordPad on my L1. Oh, give me a break. All right, one more thing. I got to use the start button. Don't tell the Windows 8 designers. All right, so desktop. Show me everything. Come on. All right. There's the glorious file. Okay. So in that, I have to add one line. And there's the line. Press Enter to continue. Should be this one. Well, I don't know what's going to happen. That's what I get for using WordPad. I don't like that much. I'm going to use the Notepad version and put that in. Notepad. All right. Shift Control V. That'll do. Alt F. S. Okay, let's compile that again. Which was that thing right there. Oh, there's one more nasty thing. I made this a no console compile, so you can't see what you're doing. And if you're going to do that, that press enter to continue won't work, so let's get rid of that. All right. Now it will run in the console. So here's my new super advanced malware. Press enter to continue, and then it starts making a listening shell. So let's try that stuff on a machine protected by powerful antivirus. And come on, there we go. Replace the old one. So it's down here, and go to my target and put that on there. And I thought it would have given me that same message about replacing the other one. Let's close this. There. Get rid of all that nonsense. Let's see if I got the new one to the old one. Automatically?
Aggressively, yeah.
Good. Well, that's fine. Anyway, this one here, I don't know if I'm going to wait long enough for this to happen, but Kaspersky will stop it. But yeah, Kaspersky still stops it. The delay does not fool it, but it fools Norton. So let me show you some screenshots, and I'm not going to do any more live demos until we get to the glorious new APT tool. So, all right, so this now Norton, Avast, and Microsoft Security Essentials cannot find it with that delay. Kaspersky still can. Kaspersky has done something smarter than just test the first few seconds of a program's execution. I'm not sure exactly what. So then I had another one I tried about a month ago in 2 stages with no delay, and at that time everything failed, even without a delay. So I think what happened is Norton has improved their product a little bit. And by the way, it occurred to me, Mikko is what motivated me with this whole concept of testing this, and I'd never tested his tool. So I tried F-Secure, and F-Secure blocks this thing just fine. So F-Secure, now F-Secure also does something which is, I'm not quite sure how smart to call this. F-Secure does not recognize it at all. F-Secure blocks anything that's new. Now I do not trust this application. It is a not commonly used application. So this is the kind of whitelisting you get like on an iPad. There's a list of the Apple Store, and that's it. If it's not in the Apple Store, it's a foreigner. I will not run it. So this makes you safe as long as you never develop any software or run anything new, but that seems like a pretty extreme thing for people that are going to be running a Windows machine. They expect a little more freedom than that. But of course, it did block it. So at this point, I published a challenge to the antivirus people on Twitter, and I put it on my website, saying, all right, why can't you block this thing? This thing is a remote reverse shell calling out, phoning home to be controlled, and nobody answered me, but Norton got better about a month later. So I think some word got back to them, or somehow they did. So that's why, as you see, Norton got a little more effective at blocking things. It was able to block the particular one I put up there. Before, you didn't even need a delay for the 2-round attack. So made a shell round TCP with a delay. I decided this one here is one that phones home, which is better than the one that just opens a listening port, because a listening port, of course, will be blocked by your corporate firewall. Phoning home, the reverse TCP is better. And so if you do that, you just create a reverse TCP in Kali and convert it into Python and compile it. Then you have to have a listening shell in the machine to be the controller. And Norton can't find this at all. I put in the delay too. Press enter to continue. Kaspersky can still find it though. So at this point, I got a happy response. Someone at Chris Abdallah at Tipping Point has Last Line. Now, Last Line is one of the real expensive corporate anti-malware protections. The only 2 I know of are FireEye and Last Line. There are probably others, but these things are like $50,000 or $100,000 a year, and they will snatch things off of your network and take them back to their servers and run it in a virtual machine and decide if it's good or bad before letting it go through, which is pretty bloody awesome. Although when I read, I think about the FireEye machine, they say it doesn't actually block it. It just lets you know that it was bad later because they can't wait all that long. But anyway, this is the only product I've ever seen that actually figures out what it is correctly. Metasploit, executable, identified, reverse shell. These guys actually can do what I assumed they would all do, which is notice the default payloads in Metasploit. That doesn't seem like I'm asking too much. FireEye, I can't get any action out of them. If any of you guys have FireEye and would like to test some of this malware, that would be awesome. They won't. I asked him, is there some way to submit something to you for testing? Is there a free sample? They got nothing but crickets. So anyway, so I cannot say how good FireEye is. But then I decided, let's try another attack. How about a keylogger? Well, I'm too lame to even write a keylogger. I just Googled and found some code 4 years old. Somebody wrote Python keylogger long ago. So I said, what happens if I just take that? And then I said, that's my huge advantage. Let's push the keystrokes to pastebin. So that's, you just go to the pastebin API. All you have to do is send a post request, and you put your keystrokes here, and they'll post on pastebin. So when I tried this yesterday, I'd start this thing running on my machine. I was at Starbucks at like 5 in the morning running this thing, and every time I press enter, I'm putting another paste. So pastebin busted me. So I'll warn you, you can't just run this one too often on pastebin. But anyway, I wrote my own version that posts on my own server that doesn't time out, and it's pretty awesome. So Kaspersky and Avast don't notice this at all. Norton won on this one, but that's just because there was no delay. When I added the delay, Norton doesn't pick it up. So now I'm ready to present to you the glorious release for this con. the highly advanced product, the ultra advanced APT tool that will blast through every defense. And I might as well show you. You can get this right now. In fact, I got the URL right there. You can download it right now and run it on your machine. It's bloody awesome. Nothing will stop it. And let me show you this thing blowing things away. So this is that thing with Kaspersky on it. All right, let's just not worry about that. Here's the Evil Sam. Okay, this is the one that goes to my server. That'll do. Okay, and when I run Evil Sam on this machine, yes, I think I have to close this nonsense maybe. Let's see. Right. There we are. There, Avast is checking it out. Okay, Avast decided it was fine. Okay, that's reassuring. Avast. Now, Kaspersky advised that Kaspersky did not detect it earlier today, but today it did. That's interesting. Maybe they're paying a little more attention, I think. Let me just try another one here. Let me get another machine up here with an antivirus. Let's try B. I think that's Norton. Yeah, that's Norton. All right. I highly doubt that Kaspersky really detected it, because it certainly didn't do it earlier today when I tested it. I think what's going on is I'm running so many virtual machines at a time that my keystrokes are getting a little, my mouse movements are not getting proper response. But all right, there's glorious Norton running. And Microsoft Security Essentials also running, telling me everything is fine. So, there's my Evil Sam. Okay. There we are. Now when I run it, okay, so you press enter, and then you type some stuff. Hello, LayerOne, Norton, don't care. Then you press enter again, and it pastes it up on the internet and shows it to you in a browser. So that's a keylogger. That's about the worst thing that could possibly happen. Norton doesn't care. Microsoft Security Essentials doesn't care. And I've tested everything I could think of. None of them care at all. I'm now James Bond. And so are you. Here's F-Secure doesn't care. Here's the evil keylogger stealing stuff with F-Secure telling you everything is fine. I tried Kaspersky, Nod32, every blooming thing that came to mind. And nothing does anything about this. So, you know, I'm kind of irritated at the antivirus industry. It seems to me, I imagined they were a locked door with a guard, and what I think they are is like a 3-foot tall wall saying, please don't go on the yard. That's about what they are. If you just go to a tool and click create exploit default mode, they'll stop that. But if you go even 1 inch off the map, they're like, whoa, no clue. What could this horrible thing be? Why, they converted it into Python. No. I can't tell that there's listing shell. I can't watch keystrokes flying off the paste bin. No, it was in Python. So I was hoping for better, and therefore I'm here shaming them, thinking they might do better. Now, let me check my time. Oh, got lots of time left. Good. All right. So then I got time to pick on more people. Now, I feel kind of bad about picking on Fortinet, because Fortinet is cool. We had a firewalls class at our college, and it was the old generation of firewalls. So people were blocking things by port numbers and stuff. And some of the students started to rebel. They said, you know, this is garbage. There's something called Palo Alto. This is totally out of date. And I said, yeah, I know. It kind of stinks, but I can't get my hands on any of that stuff. So I started complaining, and finally, Fortinet came through, and they shipped me 30 firewalls, $350 each. And I said, hey, you guys rock. And we're going to get trained in that. We're going to teach people Fortigate firewalls. And now Palo Alto has been shamed into giving us some stuff, supposedly. I'm still signing legal contracts with them. But apparently, in a couple semesters, we're really going to have Palo Alto and Fortinet modern firewalls that people can work on, and that's much better. And so the first thing I did with the firewall, of course, was to try to break it, which I'm not sure is exactly what they had in mind. But this is an IPv6 enabled firewall here. And let me... And I was very pleased with that. Now, like most firewall products these days, it is IPv6 enabled, but it is not in the GUI. You have to do it in the command line to control the IPv6 features. So let me connect to, this is it, right here. That's your $350 FortiGate Layer 7 firewall. And I'm connecting it to my host machine here on the client side. and I have to disconnect from the wireless network, which is going to be a little bit clumsy because the resolution is so low on this thing that I can't see my wireless thing. I have to go to Preferences, yeah, thank you, and then Displays, and then I have to scale it down to something better for a moment. It'll go back in 15 seconds, but in that 15 seconds I can easily turn off the wireless card. Alright, now we can revert. Alright, so now I should actually have a connection to my Fortigate firewall. Let's take a look at ifconfig. And on my EN, let's see if I got more. EN8 it looks like. Alright, so it's 192, 168, 199. I don't know why they did that, but that's where they put it. Okay, it's a default password. I haven't put anything better on it yet. So I've logged in here, and here's the control panel of your Fortinet firewall. This dashboard is actually pretty cool. It shows me my firmware version and CPU usage and memory and all this good stuff. And it's got a whole bunch of GUI things here, but all that is IPv4 only. So if you want to use IPv6, you got to use this console. Now I'm going to detach it. And I was thinking I might make it bigger, but maybe that is big enough already. All right, so here's the command line commands you need to put in order to set this thing up to automatically configure IP addresses. So what this is going to do is on the WAN interface, it's going to turn on IPv6 and turn on IPv6 auto configuration. So it will accept router advertisements from the source and automatically attach addresses to the WAN interface. So I just had to put that stuff in here. Oh, that's right, I have to type that stuff. I can't copy and paste, so I have to be a little more dexterous here or something. I can't seem to get a handle on that. Let's see if I can move this. There we are. Now I'm approaching the place of being able to see what I'm typing and type it in at the same time. All right. Well, this meant, there we are. Perfect. Okay, config. It's just like a Cisco router. System interfaces. Edit WAN. Config IPv6. Set auto config enable. And an end. All right, now this thing will configure IPv6 addresses. And let me just show them this diagnose IPv6 address list. Diagnose. Okay, IPv6 address list. All right, there's my WAN interface, and right now it just has : :1 and an FE80, which is nothing. Now I'm going to feed it some addresses. I've got my backtrack machine here is going to be the source of these IPv6 packets. And, okay, one down will do. All right. So, if I do, just a moment, a little bit clumsy on this low resolution screen. All right, so IP address showed me worst. IP address show pipe more. Okay, I have ETH0 and ETH2. ETH2 is the USB Ethernet, which is going directly to the Fortigate from my virtual machine. USBs are awesome, by the way. You can use them for this kind of attack without killing the host, because the traffic that passes through the host is USB and not Ethernet, so I'm not going to kill my Mac, which would be a problem if I went directly through it. Anyway, now I'm going to send some router advertisements there, a fake router 6. Let's call it 3355::/64, and I think I have to put the interface here, ETH2. ETH2, I said. All right. Okay, now it's sending one router advertisement per second, advertising 3355. So if I go back to the Fortigate and do this diagnose again, it's now auto-configured an address starting 3355, which is what it should do. So that's fine as far as it goes, but if I open another window here and send it a flood, which is flood router 26 ETH2. Okay, now I go back to here, press enter, nothing happens. If I go to the console here and click on stuff, nothing happens. It's frozen. If I try to refresh it, nothing happens. And what's even more fun is if I ping it. it's dead. It can't even answer ping anymore because of that flood. And this is somewhat suboptimal, right? You can kill the firewall. The firewall is supposed to be protecting you from things like IPv6 floods. And I would say it's not doing that. So let me stop the flood and we'll watch to see this thing recover. So I hit Control-C, that stops the flood. Now the status of the interface has changed a little bit. After 20 or 30 seconds, it will recover. At least it has in my previous tests. Well, that's kind of boring. Let's go take a look at the other panels, which are over here. See if I can refresh this thing. Nope, it's not available. And this one's, of course, Toast 2. Request timeout. I think it will eventually recover. Oh, in my previous test, it eventually recovered. But anyway, let me just tell you what's happening here. This is probably not a fair test, because why would anybody turn auto-addressing on a firewall? What are you, nuts? You don't want the address in your firewall changing. Yeah?
Since when do people who deploy firewalls read the manual?
Well, now you have a very good point there, especially in the world of IPv6. But this seems to me like something you would not do by accident. Oh, it's answering. Good. See, it's recovered. Neat. Let's see if I can reload this page. All right, it's back. My glorious Fortigate is back. And if I look over here for the performance, the CPU is low, the memory is all right. And so it is back. However, it's not really back. It just looks good. Because if you take a look here and detach this and try some of these features to see what's happened, it was diagnose something or other. Diagnose IPv6 address list. Diagnose IPv6 address list. Well, this could take a while. So now that is what I asked it to do, right? I said, listen to router advertisements and auto-configure, but this is the result of the attack. And you know, most operating systems are wising up about this. Microsoft finally wised up after about 3 years of being humiliated. Many versions of Linux have wised up that they will ignore them after about the first 10 addresses. Like, how many real paths out are there on your network anyway? But the Fortigate just has that many. And another thing that's fun is the routing table. And this is many modern versions of Linux are still vulnerable to this attack because the routing table expands without limit. So the IPv6 routing table is diagnose IPv6 route list. Okay, and that is similarly essentially infinite. And I think I actually exported this to an Excel spreadsheet, and it had something ridiculous like 12,000 or 17,000 entries now. So, which is pretty much what SUSE Linux does. SUSE Linux will die from this attack too. I've been publishing videos about it and such, because the routing table just grows without limit. So, although the Fortigate appears to be alive again and answering pings, it has in fact taken essentially what I would call some permanent damage here by filling up large quantities of its memory with useless garbage. And the only way that I found to fix that is to reboot it, although you might possibly be able to turn off the IPv6 auto configuration, but I'm going to reboot it. And anyway, like I say, so I made a video of this and I sent it secretly to Fortigate. I said, you know, since you guys give me a whole pile of free stuff, I'll practice responsible disclosure at least. I said, you know, I give you a chance to fix it. And I must say I learned a lesson. Use videos. Boy, I sent pages to Microsoft and instructions and screenshots and code, and that was all a waste of time. Within 12 hours, they could reproduce it. Videos really work. People will watch your video and they can reproduce the exploit. So their team, within 12 hours, is able to reproduce the exploit. They said, we're on it. We're putting out new firmware. And then about 2 weeks ago, I said, you know, the security cons are coming. I'm sure like to talk about this at cons and not leave these videos hidden forever. Are you going to have an update pretty soon? And I got nothing. So here I am doing it. So I hope they don't send a guy and take all my firewalls back. But they've been pretty cool about it so far. So anyway, let me show you the other one. So this was an unfair attack, though. This assumes you turn on that automatic configuration, and that is a pretty screwy thing to do anyway. So it'd be more appropriate to test it under this condition. Let me see if my firewall's come back up yet. It hasn't. All right. That's kind of worth showing you. I've got the time. Anybody have any questions or anything?
Can you show us the URL for the exploit?
Oh, sure. That's easy. If you want to get that stuff, it is samsclass.info/evil.exe. Here, let me just put it here in a text editor, because right now here it's this, samsclass.info/evil.exe. class.info/evil.exe. And I highly encourage everybody, please download this stuff and run it and see what happens. If you find anything that stops this, please let me know. As far as I'm aware, there is nothing short of $100,000 that will stop this ultra super powerful attack. And the source code is about 20 lines of Python, mostly being that ASCII art at the start. Yeah?
Once you get your Palo Alto, because Palo Alto actually does have sandbox unlocking.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cost you $50,000 to get.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see if they spin it around quick.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I know Fortigate also supposedly can stop malware, but they're in VirusTotal.
Right.
And I don't think they have any heuristic detection.
Palo
Yeah.
actually has their own sandbox and
Oh, they do. So they'll actually pick up the stuff and send it home. Well, that's cool. Maybe the Palo Alto will be able to stop it. Yeah. Well,
I'm really curious to see how fast they can actually turn that around.
yeah. Well, I'll be interested to see. Good. All right. Well, my firewall's back. So let me see if I can get the this screen here to refresh for me. Oh, good. All right. So let me show you what happens when you turn off that silly address auto configuration. Here's my CPU down, my memory is down, that's good. So I go in here, detach this again, and then I got to type in some commands again, which are there. I would move them to the bottom if I could find something to grab. Ah, there we are. Good. All right. Config system interfaces again. Okay, config. Edit. WAN. Config IPv6. Set. Auto. Disable, the way any intelligent person would. So now it is not auto-configuring IP addresses. So if I do that diagnose command, which, there it was, diagnose IPv6 address list. Okay, diagnose IPv6 address list. Okay, so now it has an address it remembers from before, but no more are there. And now if I hit it with a flood, it is not going to auto-configure any addresses. Therefore, it should be fine, you would think. So if I go here and I hit it with that flood again, then I go back to the FortiGate. Let's look at the pings, actually. The pings are still answering. So it's a lot better than before. It's not just killing the thing dead. But if you go here and look at your CPU, it's 100%. So that's not exactly good. Now this, by the way, is what Microsoft calls a patch. Now, Microsoft, almost every version of Microsoft Windows, Vista and later, died with the blue screen of death when confronted with this attack. And Microsoft put out an IPv6 readiness update in November, I think, of 2013 or maybe 2012. And their patch would get it to this. Now, instead of the blue screen of death, it just pushes the CPU to 100% during the attack. But when you stop the attack, it recovers, which I have to admit is better than nothing. So let me stop the attack here. And now let's watch this thing. And it will, in fact, recover. Yeah, our CPU immediately goes back down to 0. So this is basically as fixed as a Microsoft product. But I still don't think this is as fixed as a firewall ought to be. And we had another firewall around. We had a Sonic Wall. And Sonic Wall actually has an option in the GUI to ignore router advertisements. Not just not auto-configure, but straight up ignore them. And when you check that box, it just doesn't notice this flood at all. It's like it's not even happening, which is what ought to be true. So that's what I sent. I mean, 4 videos, showing the 2 conditions. With the auto-configuration turned on, of course, the Sonic Wall is burdened. But if you if you don't ignore router advertisements, the Sonic Wall is burdened about like this. But if you ignore them, the Sonic Wall doesn't care. It throws them away in an efficient manner, and it's just fine. And I said to Fortigate, you guys need to put in that box and have some option that will just throw them away. And they said they're gonna, but they haven't done it yet, as far as I can tell. All right, so that's my abuse of Fortigate. Well, they're very nice to give me this stuff, but they do need to patch their stuff so this doesn't happen all the time. All right. And there may be a new firmware out by now, and they didn't tell me. The problem is I could not figure out how to download and back up the firmware, and I'd only brought 1 firewall. I was not willing to update this morning and then have no demo work. So, patch is out? Patch 5. I'm running patch 4. How do you read that on here? Can you tell? You just happen to know?
Actually, if you look on the firewall itself,
Yeah.
go back to the home page there.
Yeah.
See where it says version
Yeah, patch 4. Now there's a patch 5. Oh, good. So that's why I was hoping I had wired Ethernet up here. I could update it and see if it actually fixed it. So maybe they passed it and didn't tell me. Maybe the latest version has fixed, in which case I really practiced responsible disclosure. But I didn't answer me to last. Yeah, I'll update this thing as soon as I get back to some wired Ethernet someplace. Anyway, so that was good, clean fun. Like I say, I learned something very valuable here. I'm going to send videos to vendors from now on. Man, I never had this work so well. Usually, you send them like 3 commands in Kali Linux, and they say, can't reproduce. And I say, damn it. But you know, I've seen it. This is the most common mistake my students do on projects is they skip step 1, which is like use Linux, and they try to do it on Windows, and then around step 10, they're really lost. And as far as I can tell, that happens when I submit vuln reports too. Oh, you meant Linux. Oh, so that's Fortinet. Now Microsoft. Boy, you never get tired of picking on Microsoft. You know, it's just the gift that keeps giving. Let me turn off a few machines here. I don't need this one anymore. This is a pretty awesome thing. I can run 4 VMs at a time, but I don't think I want to push it any further than that. I need this one. I need this one. But I do need something I never thought I would need. I have a student, see, who is kind of an IPv6 fanatic. And he said, what about Vista? And I said, Vista? What are you talking about Vista for? He said, well, you haven't tested it, have you? And I said, well, it's not even worth testing because Microsoft has patched Windows XP against this. They patched Windows 7, Server 2012, Server 2008. Obviously, they patched Vista. And he said, you didn't try it. And he wouldn't shut up. And I said, all right. And he installed a bunch of Vista in the lab and said, let's try it. And I said, fine, we'll try it. I'll still shut you up. And as you can imagine, that's not what happened. This is actually quite a dramatic attack. And I think this is having to restart because I didn't restart it after the last time I attacked it. But let's let my Vista come up here because this is actually pretty bad. And I noticed something, which I might as well tell you anecdotally. I've been making a lot of fresh machines. To test these antivirus, I wanted to make sure nothing else is on it. So we install a brand new Windows 7 Server Pack 1. It then says 137 updates. When you install a Vista Service Pack 1, it says 79 updates. And it's like 4 years older. So apparently, this is not the only patch that Microsoft did not bother to give Vista. And you know, I don't know if anybody on Earth is even using Vista. The only people I knew was the U.S. Army, and they're moving up to Windows 8, of course. But anyway, but technically they support it, right? XP reached its end of life, and this is a big deal. If Vista has not reached its end of life, it seems to me that it's reasonable for people to expect Microsoft to patch it. But anyway, that's not what happens. So here's my glorious Vista. If I do ipconfig, I have a bunch of stuff. If I do pipe more, I don't seem to have any network connection. Connect it. That would be better. The attack will not work if the network adapter is not connected. I'll give him that. All right, now it's connected. So let's run that same attack from here. Let's go to this window. Oh, good. It is already advertising 3355. Let me just start it up again. Let's give it a different number like 4567. All right. Now I'm advertising that stuff. This should be on the same network segments. So if I do this, that's not good. 192.168.119. All right. Yeah, I might be in trouble with my glorious attack. Let me just try taking that interface down and up again. Manage network connections. Disable. User account control. Okay. Enable. Oh. My Kali machine is currently sending the attack out through the USB NIC. No wonder it's not getting anywhere. I need it to send it through the virtual NIC for this one, which is ETH0. So let's just send this stuff out ETH0. That's the problem. All right. Now, right. Hopefully that will enable. I know about that. Let's not worry. This is updated, by the way. All right, there we are. Now it's auto-configuring 4, 5, 6, 7 addresses. It's hearing the IPv6 packets, which is what I wanted to see. So now I go here and I send that flood out ETH0. And now what you got is you got a dead machine. The mouse won't even go in here. Start button does nothing. You can't do a bloody thing. I meant to start Task Manager, but if I had, you would just see that Task Manager doesn't even update. This thing is absolutely dead. And for even more fun, let's kill the attack. That was maybe 15 seconds. And it's still dead. But when it will come back, I may or may not have the patience to wait for it here. If you can get a little bit of action out of it now. If you right-click the taskbar and count to maybe 20 or 30, it'll eventually answer, and you can open Task Manager to show you that the CPU is at 100%, and it will stay at 100% forever. I waited 16 hours the first time, and then 4 hours the next time. It never comes back. And you can unplug the cable so the interface is gone, and it just freezes forever. The only thing you can do is pull the plug out. You can't do a normal shutdown. You can't do a bloody thing. This is really extremely effective. And you know, so here I am. The point, it's kind of ridiculous. Microsoft patched all these, so they kind of need to patch Vista too, or they need to tell us that Vista is now no longer supported. Yeah.
Kill at 2008 or 1.
I didn't try 2008 R1. Maybe it has also been skipped. I tried an R2, and I know the IPv6 readiness update is there for R2. But you're right. I think I did try it on 2008, and it didn't kill it, but I'm not sure. Yeah, it is. It does make sense. And of course, another thing my student wanted to do is try adding a patch from 2008 into Vista, because there was once a case when you were really supposed to do that with a Microsoft product. You're supposed to use a patch for the other version. That's not always insane, but I haven't gotten crazy enough to try that yet. But anyway, it seems like Microsoft ought to tell us what to do, in case anybody's still using Vista, or just admit they don't care and they've abandoned Vista. One or the other is what I would like to see. So I got a video showing that. All right, let me check my time. I think I still got plenty of time. Good, 1:45, long enough to show you a couple more things. Okay, so Microsoft has known about this since 2010, so you know there's no real issue of responsible disclosure there. So UC Santa Cruz, the last one I want to tell you about. I got it in my head about a year ago to start finding security problems at colleges. And I don't have any authorization, so I can't run like a vuln scan or anything, but I still felt like I could go put apostrophes at the end of URLs and see if they got an open SQL injection and lame stuff like that. And I used dorks to find them, just like the script kiddies. And I found a ton of them, colleges with open SQL injections and other foolish things like that, plain text logins, server versions that are 5 years old and stuff like that. But UC Santa Cruz takes the cake. I found a piece of malware that hides on your server that covertly redirects page. And it was a pretty interesting piece of malware. But anyway, I informed them, so they reimaged that one server. Just like there was a talk yesterday about, are you a janitor or are you something else? Do you just step on a roach and call the problem solved? Or do you actually find out what the problem is and fix it? And UC Santa Cruz is definitely in the first of those camps, because they reimaged one server and next day 4 were infected. And after that, they never did anything more. So if you want to see the ongoing infection at UC Santa Cruz, this has been going on since December 2013. I've contacted them many times. They don't care. I can't get anybody to even talk to me. So yesterday morning, there were 7,000 infected pages. Just look for Viagra at UC Santa Cruz. There are no significant number of real sites about Viagra there. These are all Viagra spam trying to sell you Russian, fake Canadian pharmacy stuff. And these guys are just crawling through their network, changing it every few weeks, rearranging it, laughing at them as they make pathetic attempts to clean it off. And I wanted to get a sample of this malware from the system to analyze, but I can't get anybody to even talk to me, because it's not too far for me to drive down to Santa Cruz. I would do it. So here's some example of the Santa Cruz website. Here's some astronomy for you, Viagra AirSats. This one's in German. Here's another one in French, the latest they've been used in foreign languages. And what these are, by the way, is a form of stealing your reputation. These put keywords on ucsantacruz.edu, which Google will then use to improve PageRank, and people trust edu sites for some ungodly reason. Believe me, if you work at a college, you would know better than to trust edu sites. But anyway, so they're cruising for this disaster. This already happened to the Maricopa Community College. They got infected. They didn't do anything about it. They ignored all the warnings in a network team saying, look, you are running a compromised server, inputting student data and everything else. You can't just pretend it doesn't matter. And after a couple of years, they really got hacked again. and this is the future of UC Santa Cruz. I guess it'll be a year or two before this headline comes out and they say, we had no idea, nobody told us or anything. So that's the way it was. Here's, after 9 to 10 months, they didn't do anything. We're still running on a compromised server. This is not good. That's what their security staff told them, and nobody cared. So anyway, if you want any of this stuff, just go to samsclass.info. The evil advanced APT tool is there. And here's hands-on projects telling you how to do all this stuff. So, and these slides, anything else you want? I think that's it. Any questions about anything? Okay.
Yeah, for your, the Python malware?
Yeah.
Because you only added one line for a delay.
Yeah.
That would change the MD5 hash values?
Well, no, it's not the hash value. These aren't detected by recognizing them at all. The only way it detects them is by is by noticing that they're not an old familiar file that are used to running, like Microsoft Word or something. That's what F-Secure does. I'm not quite sure what the other ones do. But the delay just turns off the heuristic scanning. So apparently that is a feature of Norton, which that little Bobby Tables knows about, that Norton checks for certain kinds of suspicious behavior, but only for the first few seconds. And after that, it no longer checks for it. And apparently something similar to F-Secure, because the final product of evil that you can download, I can't find anything that stops it at all. Kaspersky doesn't stop it, nothing does, not 32. All the ones people love, they don't see it at all. So it's, oh yeah, if you do have the internet, I kind of did want to show you the source code in case it's not clear. Oh, let me try and remove all the spurious paths going nowhere. All right. And now I should be able to get, oh, I have to activate my, all right, I got 10 minutes, pardon me. A little bit of unprofessional stuff here due to my display limitations. Scaled to here. Yeah, that's what I want. Now I can connect to the glorious hotel network again. And I can revert back. And now theoretically I will have the internet. Okay, and I just wanted to show you the source code for this glorious ultra advanced state-sponsored attack. It is state-sponsored, by the way. I'm sponsored by the city of San Francisco in the capacity as community college. So I am one of those state-sponsored APT attackers. And this is the source code. This is mostly the ASCII art. There's the active ingredient. So this here is the stuff I copied from Pastebin's API instructions. And this is the part I copied from somebody else's thing 4 years ago. And that's it. So that makes me James Bond. Anyway, that's all there is, and you can download the thing here. This is kind of funny, by the way. I host a lot of malware on my website, but usually I have to zip it and encrypt it. But this stuff I'm just hosting right there as an exe because nobody detects it. It's like, I'm hosting this malware right on my website. Nope, I guess it's going to be that way for a while. Yeah? I've had a lot of people ask me that. As far as I can tell, they're all crap. Not one of them. What's that? Well, no, I use them anyway, and I recommend using them because there are some attacks they stop. If somebody's running the Zeus bot, my impression is, if you get something like Zeus, and you run it like Metasploit, and you click like 1, 2, or 3, use exactly what comes out of that it can stop. If you do anything to change it at all, it's helpless. That's my impression. And as far as I can tell, there's no particular reason to choose one over another. Yeah?
Try bit 9.
Bit 9, I have not. Never even knew it, never even heard of it. But, well, the application, now see that F-Secure, at least sometimes it stops it on the grounds that it's new. Like the timestamp is not a week old, therefore it's probably funny. And maybe that kind of thing might work, although F-Secure doesn't stop this one for some reason. Running in a console with a delay seems to skip that step. Yeah? I have not tried Panda. That would be a good thing to try. Yeah? There's lots of but as far as I can tell, they're all very weak defenses.
The fact that you're using a 4-year-old keylogger, that F-Secure CSET is a common application now.
Well, I kind of doubt that, but I suppose it's possible. Yeah?
Sorry, I missed the beginning. Did you throw this up on VirusTotal and all that good stuff?
Yes.
And it came
You put it on VirusTotal, it's completely invisible. 1 out of 49.
VirusTotal kind of sells those signatures to all that. So eventually this will be out there,
I see. That's a very interesting thing. He's saying, but by the way, for the people on video, he's saying when you put things on VirusTotal, the antivirus vendors find out and put up signatures. That is not true. That is a in my experience, that is not true. Let me tell you why. I had some previous ones where we used the obfuscation tools in Metasploit to scramble something, and my students would do homework and put it on VirusTotal. And the first semester, like 5 out of 10 would detect it, and 6 months later, maybe 7 or 8 out of 10 would detect it. It's really, really slow. It is not true that you put your malware on VirusTotal and next week 50 are detecting it. Not even close. I guess they are told, and my impression is they kind of ignore that information. Yeah. Any others? Well, I better get out of the way for the next speaker. Thank you. That's totally fine.